A laundromat with 40 washing machines can pull in $1 million a year. A different laundromat, 3 suburbs over, with the exact same number of machines, barely covers its rent. Same equipment, same industry, completely different outcome. So what actually separates a laundromat that prints money from one that quietly bleeds cash for 5 years before the owner walks away? Today we're breaking down the real numbers, startup costs, licensing, ongoing bills, and what's actually left over at the end of the month. Stick around, because the biggest expense on this list is not the one most people expect. Let's start with the number everyone Googles first. How much does it actually cost to open one of these? In Australia, industry estimates put the full startup investment anywhere from $100,000 on the low end to $500,000 plus for a large, brand new fit out in a metro location. Most mid-size operators land somewhere in the $150,000 to $300,000 range once everything is accounted for. Here's where that money actually goes. Commercial washers and dryers are the single biggest line item. A full bank of machines can easily account for well over half your budget. Then there's the fit out itself. Plumbing, drainage, ventilation, electrical work to handle the load of a dozen plus machines running at once, flooring, and shopfront signage. But here's the cost that catches most first-time owners off guard. It's not the machines. It's the plumbing and drainage work needed to meet trade waste requirements, which we'll get to in a second. That single piece of infrastructure can blow out a fit-out budget by tens of thousands of dollars if the site wasn't built for it. On top of the equipment and fit-out, budget for opening stock, detergent, softener, vending items, plus a cash float for change machines, and enough working capital to survive the first few months before word gets around the neighborhood. You'd think a laundromat, of all businesses, would be one of the simplest to get approved. It's not. First, the basics. Registering your business structure and ABN through the standard small business channels is quick and cheap, usually done within days for under a few $100s. The real gatekeeper is your local council and your water authority, because laundromats discharge wastewater, detergent, lint, grease from certain fabrics into the sewer system. Almost every state requires a formal trade waste approval before you can legally operate. In New South Wales, that means an application to Sydney Water or your regional water authority. In Western Australia, it's Water Corporation. In Queensland, individual councils manage it under state water legislation. This isn't a rubber stamp. You'll need to detail your number of machines, estimated washes per day, liters per wash, and any pre-treatment equipment like lint screens or oil separators. Councils can take around a week to process a straightforward application, but if your site needs new plumbing to meet the requirements, that timeline stretches into months, not weeks. Here's a question worth sitting with. If you're touring a potential site right now, have you actually confirmed the property can get trade waste approval? Or are you assuming it will, because the last tenant ran a similar business? Beyond trade waste, you'll need public liability insurance. And, depending on your council, a development approval or complying development certificate for the change of use. None of this is expensive individually, but stacked together and combined with delays is the single biggest reason laundromat openings blow past their planned timeline. You'd think water would be the biggest recurring cost for a business built entirely around washing clothes. It's not. Electricity usually is. Utilities, primarily electricity for dryers and water heating, plus water and sewerage charges, typically eat up somewhere between 20 and 30% of total revenue in Australia. And that figure runs higher here than in markets like the US, because our commercial energy and water rates are simply more expensive. Rent is the next major fixed cost, generally landing between $1,500 and $5,000 a month, depending on location and floor space, though a busy metro strip can push well past that. Then there's the cost owners underestimate most: maintenance. Commercial machines run for hours a day, every day, and parts wear out: bearings, seals, coin, or card mechanisms. Add insurance, waste and trade waste service charges, and if you're running an attended or full service model, wages on top of that. Here's the contrast worth remembering. An unattended self-service laundromat can run with almost no payroll at all. The moment you add staff for a wash and fold or drop-off service, labor costs alone can consume 15 to 25% of revenue. That single decision, attended versus unattended, reshapes your entire cost structure. So what's actually coming in the door? A well-located Australian laundromat commonly generates somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 a year in revenue, though larger, well-positioned stores with more machines can push toward $500,000 or beyond. Self-service locations typically bring in somewhere in the range of $15,000 to $30,000 a month once they're established. Pricing is simple. Customers pay per wash and per dry cycle, with per load pricing generally running a few dollars up to around $10 depending on machine size. A quick way operators estimate income is number of machines times price per wash times average daily turns times days in the month. Even a small price increase compounds fast. Bump the price by a modest amount across a full bank of machines running several cycles a day, and that adds up to real money over a year. Foot traffic isn't evenly spread either. Weekends and evenings after work are peak. You'll also see seasonal bumps around back to school and student intake periods if you're near a university or high-density rental area, which, worth noting, is exactly where laundromats tend to perform best in the first place. Here's the number that actually matters more than revenue. What's left over? Net profit margins for Australian laundromats generally sit in the 20 to 35% range, genuinely competitive with, or better than, a lot of other small food and retail businesses, which often operate on much thinner single-digit to low-teen margins once rent and wages are accounted for. But that margin swings hard depending on one variable: labor. An unattended self-service laundromat with minimal staffing can sit at the top of that range. Add full-service staff, and your margin compresses fast, because payroll and wages are the most expensive thing you can add to the model. So here's the real comparison worth making. A laundromat isn't a high-margin glamour business. It's a utility-driven cash flow business. It doesn't do that occasional wildly profitable week. It does the same steady number week after week, which is exactly why banks tend to like lending against them. Now the part nobody puts on the brochure. Electricity and water prices in Australia have been climbing, and because utilities are already your biggest recurring cost, that squeeze hits margin directly. There's no cheaper competitor to switch on your power bill. Competition is real too. In apartment washers and dryers are becoming standard in newer developments, quietly shrinking the customer base in some areas even as overall demand grows. And franchise brands are actively expanding territory, so an independent operator can suddenly find themselves competing against a recognized name 2 blocks away. Then there's equipment risk. Machines are mechanical, they break, they need parts, and downtime on a busy Saturday is lost revenue you don't get back. And here's a question worth asking yourself if you're seriously considering this. Is the site you're looking at in a high-density rental area with limited in-home laundry access? Because that single factor, more than almost anything else, determines whether you're fighting for customers or turning them away at the door. So, is owning a laundromat in Australia actually profitable? Based on everything we've just gone through, yes, genuinely, but only under specific conditions. It works best in high-density rental areas, near universities or apartment blocks without in-home laundry, where you're not relying on any single day of the week to make your numbers. It works best when you run it lean, self-service over full service, unless you've got the volume to justify staff. And it works best when you go in with your eyes open on trade waste approval and utility costs, instead of discovering them halfway through a fit-out. Buying an existing, already profitable location generally beats building from scratch, because you skip the 12 months of building a customer base from zero, and a franchise can hand you brand recognition and support, but it also hands over some of that 20 to 35% margin in fees. If you're weighing this up for yourself, drop a comment with the suburb you're considering, and I'll tell you honestly whether the numbers stack up. See you in the next one.